Welcome everyone to our April lecture by Stephen Parker. Our speaker today has lived in the archetypal landscape of Alaska for the past 40 years. He and his wife, Cornelia Grabinska, are founders of the Jungian Society of Northern Alaska. And they run the bookstore, a sand play shop, and his website, jungcurrents.com. Stephen will be presenting the long journey of his transformation after a severe heart attack. He will share with us some of his dreams, paintings, and stonework with Jungian and alchemical references. Stephen Parker has had 3 solo art shows. His story and work with stones was featured in an article called Opening the Heart by Robert Henderson, which appeared in Psychological Perspectives, June 2017. So please, let's welcome Stephen Parker and hear his story of heart, soul, and stones. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you. So, I appreciate the opportunity to speak here. Alaska winters are very long, and it's been a good time to sort of get some perspective and think about things and see how the journey has gone. I'm also, it's interesting and sad with your own loss, the local group there. I hope the soot stones and the presentation provide some solace for those who've had a great loss. We're all really on a great mysterious journey, and this is all a part of it. So let's see if I can get this thing going here. And if you have trouble, please let me know. Let's see if I just check one thing here. So in 2000, September 2000, I had a dream. The dream was that there was an airplane with a red 4-cylinder engine. It was leaking oil, and there was smoke coming from the engine. The plane took off and immediately crashed. I sat up bolt upright in bed at 5 o'clock in the morning, and the voice in my head said, "You have heart trouble." This was a bit of a surprise to me. I thought I was healthy, walked a lot, exercised a lot. I was 50 years old. So I went in to see the physician, and we did tests, checked cholesterol, everything else, and everything was fine. About 3 months later, I was walking up a hill near our house, and I couldn't catch my breath. I felt nauseous, and I had the symptoms of, I was having angina, I was having heart problems. Went to Anchorage. They didn't have a clinic here because the guy sent me back. He said, "Well, when I'm back from vacation in 2 weeks, we can see you again." This is the early days of the internet, but I quickly tried to figure out what was going on. Found out I had severe unstable angina, and we essentially did a medical evacuation to San Francisco. And a friend arranged it, and sure enough, I had the blockage 95% blockage in my heart, and it was they call it widowmaker. It's the main descending coronary artery. So this dream, knew ahead of time that this was going on, although essentially my conscious mind obviously had none. So I went to I got a stent in San Francisco. Came back. A stent is where they put in it's like a mesh cylinder that fits in one of the arteries, and it keeps the artery up. And I dreamed after the stent that I was on a peninsula called the Moulin Rouge. There's more to the dream, but I just want to put this in. Much to my surprise, as I was checking this out, Moulin Rouge is French for the red windmill. It's like it's this thing with 4 blades that moves things in the wind. So the dream was referring, of course, to the peninsula of the heart, the Moulin Rouge. So So this is that summer, I was still pretty much in despair. And Alaska summers are also pretty intense and hot and with a lot of light. And I decided, for whatever reasons, I needed to build a cave. And so I called a friend who had a front end loader, and he dug a hole for me in the backyard, and I started building a cave. I had no previous work with stones. I just seemed like something that needed to be done. Part of the journey of this has been trying to understand the symbolism of what happens and what I went through. So this is a quote on what the cave is about. The retreat to the cave is primal. The cave is refuge, shelter. Going into it is returning to the womb, negating birth, submerging in the shadow. In the cave, there's no time, neither yesterday nor tomorrow, for today and night is one. And I must say, it was very healing to go into that cave and just let the things be dark and just sit and meditate. So then, a year or two later, I had a dream that there were 3 ravens pecking away at the pink insulation of my heart, at my house. That was my slip. Pink insulation in my house. This didn't feel good, and sure enough, I go to the clinic and acreage, and there is I need another step. So part of what I'm trying to do in this talk is to give the dreams that have accompanied the journey. So about 5 years after all this began, this is a picture from the book that was written. I'll talk about in a minute. But this was the experience. I remember this pretty clearly, very clearly. So it's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm at my treadmill, sipping a cup of coffee, and I start feeling a bit of a pain in my chest. And I thought I just had some coffee, so I thought, well, this must be coffee related. But it got worse, so I thought maybe it was heartburn. I took Tums, that didn't help. I thought, well, maybe this is really serious. I'm having a minor heart attack. Now, I must say that no physician, no nurse had taken me aside and drilled into me what the symptoms of a heart attack was, in spite of the fact that I had been a heart patient for 4 years. I really didn't understand what a heart attack was, even with my history. So I took some nitroglycerin, which increases the oxygenation of the blood. This didn't work. Started feeling much worse, like something was squeezing my chest. My wife had an office next door, so I went to see her, and she got some aspirin for me. Aspirin's a blood thinner, which you want to take if you are having symptoms of a heart attack. Have some baby aspirin. And I was having trouble catching my breath. So I went to, and we took again, this is something no one told me, but we ended up driving to the hospital, which is 15 minutes from here. What you're supposed to do if you have heart attack symptoms is call the ambulance, because they have the personnel and the medicine to deal with a heart attack. So we really should have called the ambulance. But so I get there, I get to the hospital. It took them about 2 or 3 hours. I still was having trouble breathing. The world, at one point, the world just turned totally gray, and I thought that was my last moment. They medevaced me to Anchorage on a jet. I had a lot of leg room, most I'd had ever on any trip to Anchorage, and get in the hospital. Again, this is a drawing from the series that was done after the heart attack.
Even we're not seeing any images.
You're not seeing any images?
No, so you haven't shared. I guess you haven't shared the screen correctly.
Great. Let me let's see. Cornelia, come here and help me. My wife is here.
And also, when you lean forward, the sound is a little bit clearer.
Okay.
So you have to find the share screen icon in your toolbar. Click that, and then find the PowerPoint that you want to share.
I went through that once. I'm trying again here. So So we practice this, but apparently practice
Yeah.
perfect. How about now? How about now?
No, no,
Do you see a screen now?
no.
I click on slides there and show it.
No, well, there's a green button that says share screen. Have you clicked on that?
That's very strange.
In your Zoom window,
My Zoom window. Yep.
you need to be in the Zoom window and then you click on share screen. There we go.
Oh, it's a different one. Okay.
Got it.
So it should work from here, hopefully.
And
So
then just do slideshow and then start slide. There we go.
okay, so that's the image of the airplane. So what happened about a year after I had a heart attack, I made these images. A voice in my head said, you know, you need to just sit down and draw. I'll talk about that for the next 40 days. So these are images. These are images from that. This is the Moulin Rouge. This is where the red windmill was. In the Moulin Rouge. This is the cave. It's about 10 by 15. These are some pretty big stones. Some of my friends had said, well, you just had some heart problems. Why are you lifting big stones? And my feeling was I'd been checked out by the doctors, that I'd been sort of cleared because it essentially fixed my heart up. And all the evidence also is that if you do have heart issues, any exercise helps as long as you do it gradually. You don't want to start suddenly shoveling snow a lot, but if you slowly do work, even with heart failure, it helps do work. Okay, this is the quote on the cave. This is the Dream of the Ravens. This is the image from the book. That's the description of a heart attack. This is what, okay, so I think that's where we were. So I get to the hospital in Anchorage, and I'm there, and they say, well, you took a big hit. One nurse said that, and the next one said, yeah, you've taken a pretty big hit. And a number of them said this. I didn't quite know what they meant. I mean, I was pretty out of it. And they said, well, you've got the highest troponin level we've seen here in 20 years. It's a there's an enzyme that breaks up when you have a heart attack. And it's amazing. In fact, that's the first thing they check when they do a screening. And apparently mine was really severely elevated. So it was a massive heart attack. And so this is you can see that's the Big Dipper in Orion here. So here's the process. So about after the heart attack, I was in pretty deep despair. I mean, I was having trouble getting much done, walking or anything, and pretty much in bed all the time. And a sort of intuitive voice in my head said, make some drawings. Now, you all remember from Jung, he started, the Red Book is full of drawings. And this was sort of a model for me of, well, maybe I can draw. So one of the most important quotes for me, for Jung, was, he said, to the extent that I managed to translate the emotions into images, that is to say, to find the images that were concealed in the emotions, I was inwardly calmed and reassured. Had I left those images hidden in the emotions, I might have been torn to pieces by them. There's a chance that I might have succeeded in splitting them off, but in that case, I would inexorably have fallen into neurosis and so been ultimately destroyed by them. So, the idea is it's very, words are not enough. You need to do the drawings. And I must say, it's not like every time I did a drawing, I got, oh boy, now I'm healthy. I felt some relief, but it wasn't a cure. This was about the third drawing I did. And what I did 40 drawings after this, in this series. And this is, and what I'm going to do is not show all of them, but show there's far more to this than the drawings. But this is the first. This red egg appears in one of the initial drawings, and what the book is it's a drawings with a commentary on it, and the commentary on this is, a 3-year-old could have done this, and I felt about 3 years old at the time. This is about the level of my psychological level at the time. This was another image that wanted to be drawn. It's just a spiral above the landscape. You know, I didn't, when I sat down to draw, now these aren't, I'm using a computer program. I've never painted, but I understand computers a little bit, somewhat. And so I found a program that would help me create with a computer. So these images, I didn't know what I was going to draw at the beginning. I just sat down and whatever came to mind. Okay. This is the spiral labyrinth. The spiral labyrinth is one of the oldest of symbols. It depicts the way to the unknown center of death and rebirth, the risk of the search, the danger of losing the way, the quest, and the finding and the ability to return. Now, this has stayed with me. This is going to feature later in the story, this idea of a spiral labyrinth. This was another, it's about the 16th drawing. Sort of, again, here's this heart egg. There's something, this precious thing that's growing. So I think probably by this, you know, I'm getting a little better. Okay, now here, one of the things that trauma does, it kind of splits you in two. One of the things that, a quote again that stands out to me is another Jungian quote that says, "To this day, God is the name by which I designate all things which cross my willful path." Whoa, just let me go back a minute here. Oh, I don't. I guess we're going to skip that. The idea is that God is what crosses your path, and it's not necessarily God as His presence in the sky, but God essentially is fate. So this is another image. This is a real egg. This is getting around Easter time. It's also this, as you can see, there's kind of a egg shape over the egg, and there's this sort of crack that's going into the egg, and it's like a figure also escaping from the egg. Again, I didn't do these drawings and interpret them immediately. This process happened, I said, about a year after I did these drawings. This is in February, I think. Some intuitive voice in my head said, every day, write something about, go over each of these images and write something about them. So what I would do, I essentially would start at the beginning of the day, just start trying to understand it. At the end of the day, I'd walk on the treadmill for 1 or 2 or 3 hours at a very slow speed. And often maybe by midnight, finally the piece would come together. Okay, so Jung says about eggs, it's not just a cosmogonic symbol, it's a philosophical one. As the former, it is the Orphic egg, the world's beginning. As the later, the philosophic egg of the natural philosophers, the vessel from which at the end of the opus alchemicum, homunculus, the spiritual, intimate, and complete man emerges. Now, I'm going to refer through this at the end of the talk too, this idea of the homunculus emerging from the egg. Next image. What I've done here again is the images, out of the 40 images, about 10 of them have eggs, and this is the one when they start really appearing. So there's 7 eggs here. You can interpret 7 all sorts of ways. 7 chakras, 7 as a number before completion. Now, as I was reading, again, trying to understand this, I came across this passage from ARAS. And it just cracked me up when I read this, actually. The ancient Egyptians imagined that in the beginning, the universe, I can't see the writing, was nothing. How do you, I don't know how to go back on the slides here.
On the bottom left, there should be little arrows that you could use.
I didn't see that.
Oh.
It's another way to do it too, yeah. I'll have to read it. So
then go back to start the slideshow so we can see it large. Yeah. From current slide. There are arrows at the bottom.
I got
There are arrows at the bottom left that you can use to go backward and forward.
Okay. So this is the image. This is from the great god Thoth as an ibis. The world was said to have originated in the cosmic egg that had been laid by the celestial goose, who had first broken the silence of the world and was called the great cackler. So I said this cracked me up when I read it. Somehow I was doing something quite Egyptian here. This is another image. I called, my wife had just given to me a late birthday present from the Stan Marlin on the eclipse of the sun, the black sun, and he was talking about chemical processes. And so out of the blue, I said, I think I'll call him and see what he says and send him the image. And much to my, he didn't charge me for the session, or it wasn't a full session, but he said, well, it was like the unconscious was calling him, and he, responded. So he gave me some comments about, you need to contain the heat of the alchemical process, and that's what the green is doing. Now, then I came across this quote, which really fitted. When our hearts are closed, we live within a shell. To extend the egg metaphor, the shell needs to be broken open if the life within is to enter into full life. What we need is a hatching of the heart, an opening of the self to God and the sacred. So to a large extent, when one has these kind of near-death experiences, it sort of cracks you open. They talk about, a wake-up call. So there was something that was greatly changed by this series. This was the last image in the book. You can see that there's a red egg at the center, and there's a spiral. There's a, right here is a spiral, Fibonacci spiral labyrinth coming out of the egg. Again, I didn't plan to do this. This is what wanted to be drawn. Okay. And this is the Jung quote that went along to me with the drawing. He said, I cannot prove to you that God exists, but my work has proved empirically that the pattern of God exists in every man, and that this pattern in individual has at its disposal the greatest transforming energies of which life is capable. Find this pattern in your own individual self, and life is transformed. So again, this is some kind of transformation that is happening. And this was the last image. Okay. Perhaps it's the point that, Judy, I could take a couple questions at this point. What do you think? I can't hear you though.
Hit the stop share screen on your Zoom window, or
Stop share, okay. Red little thing, okay. Stop share.
there you go. Now we're back to you. Okay, so if anybody wants to ask a question or make a comment, please raise your hand. Don't be shy. Don't see any yet. Often takes people a little time to start talking. Oh, there's one.
I appreciate.
There's one. All right, I will send
Susan.
Susan. I am sending you an unmute. There we go. Go ahead, Susan Conniff.
Hi, thank you. My question is just a quick clarification. You were talking about someone that you called and had a brief kind of session with.
Yes, Dan.
A book. Who was that again?
Dan Marlin.
Dan Marlin. Okay.
His book is called The Black Sun.
Okay, I got that. Yeah.
It's a psychological eclipse of the soul, essentially. It's an image from alchemy. It's a wonderful, deep book.
Okay. Dan Marlin.
Dan.
Okay. Thank you.
Dan
And
Marlin.
by the way, while I'm muted, I better take advantage of it. Your pictures are beautiful. I mean, I know they're not meant to be beautiful, and it doesn't really matter, but they are stunning. They really are. Yeah.
After I'd completed things, Jung said that the unconscious likes to speak in primary colors. And my sister, who's an artist, she said, "Boy, Steve, those are some pretty bright colors." She doesn't use the primary colors, but yeah. And I mean, Jung, there's a statement in Jung too about being art. When he was doing the Red Book, he said this dialogue with his anima, whether he was an artist or not. It's art, and he said it's not art. I mean, there's a problem. The whole point is not to try to create something that's, it's not going to be in a gallery that way. It's not representational art. It's art from the unconscious. It's process art. Okay. Any more questions?
I have one question. So I want to know if you had like previous dreams related with that, or how did you notice that was like a sign that you had to do something different?
Well, I hadn't had previous kind of heart issues or medical issues. And I must say, I ignored the dream. I mean, the dream says, you have heart problems. And it's a voice very clear in my head at 5 o'clock in the morning. It says, you have heart problems, buddy. And I believe the doctor more than the unconscious. Like, oh, well, you don't have problems because the tests say you don't have heart problems. But, but I did, and so I think there was, and I also, this dream was in 2000. I had a heart attack in 2005. I didn't have a dream that woke me up in the middle of the night and said, hey, you're going to have a heart attack, stop, do more preventative stuff. So it's not like the voice is always there. Information from that way. It's a very small, it's in the passive psyche, it's the thin voice of the reed, a very small little voice sometimes that talks. And I was just fortunate the first time to hear it, but I've missed it plenty of times. But you can bet I pay attention now. I can say, and I've given talks on this. I did a whole thing at the Dream Group Society on, on dreams and medical issues. But fire in a dream is often about inflammation. If it's about the body, one of the things you want to ask when you have a dream is, if this were a dream about my physical state, what would it be saying? We often tend to, because we're psychologically minded, we think it's a psychological thing. But if it's about your body, what would it be saying? And often fire is about inflammation in the system. So there's some kind of, with this plane crash, there was a fire and there's inflammation going on. And I've had a number of dreams that help me understand that I need to deal with inflammation. So I use my dreams in some ways as medical advice, I guess.
Okay, next we have Mary Francos.
Hi, I'm interested in what kinds of resistances you felt prior to drawing and how you dealt with those.
That's a good question. One of the basic psychological principles is you first have to deal with the resistance to something before you can deal with anything. I think I must be totally desperate. I was in despair. I was in a deep, deep depression. Yeah. Did not see a way. One of the things I didn't say, this heart attack destroyed a third of my heart. So to this day, I'm still not fully functional. So I was really, really out of it.
Okay, if we're done with Mary, Elizabeth Vo.
Yes, thank you so much. I actually have two questions while I have the opportunity. One is regarding, you have an orientation and a...
Oh, whoops, I'm sorry. I unmuted you, sorry, so sorry.
Okay, I'm back, sorry.
There you go, there you go.
Okay, so pardon me, I have two questions. One is that with your Jungian orientation and knowledge, you've responded to these dreams in a very sensitive and a certain way. And what about all of the people that haven't had this and have the raw material of dreams and this delivery of symbols? I'd like for you to muse on that topic a little bit for those who might be less, educated or involved in this sort of perspective. That's one question. The other question is, whatever happened to your cave? Thank you for your answers in advance. And I love your pictures too.
Well, the dominant Western scientific model is part of the problem with ignoring dreams. I think when they do polls, I think more than 50% of people think that dreams have meaning. And actually, it's mostly the medical establishment and the Western establishment. When I try to tell, I've learned not to tell cardiologists about my dream because I get this eye roll all the time, like, boy, he's one of those. And so you got to be very careful who you share the material with. In terms of the cave, yeah, I didn't know a whole lot about building back then. And it's not waterproof. and we have a big runoff in the spring, so it gets very moldy. So I'm actually, it's on my list this year, hopefully, to reestablish the cave. But there's a whole, I've done 10 years of stonework since then that you're going to see in the later half here. So that's this, I've sort of built a better cave. That's what's happened to it. I built a bigger, better cave. Okay, so let me start to go to the next level.
Oh, we do have two
Okay.
raised hands. Should we just take them and then?
Yes, please.
Okay, we have Shahrazad Shashani.
Yes, hi.
Hello.
Stephen, I'm very touched by your process, and the image that stands out for me here is the egg and how it developed in your paintings. As you probably know, I mean, Jung says that man develops from an egg and grows into the whole man. And that is the law in him. And then he goes on and says, the first man is born out of the human parents. And the second birth, the second man is born from a spiritual being, a bird that gives birth to an egg. So definitely it's been a spiritual journey for you, and I'm wondering how this resonates with you. What more you can say about it?
Yes, in fact, this is a wonderful segue. I'll take the next question. The next section is about eggs.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Exactly, my question is like, why have I drawn 10 eggs and why a red egg? That's like, what's the story?
Okay, so then we have Misha, and then we'll have you go on.
Okay, I'll be quick. I just wanted to share thank you for sharing your art. And I do the emergent images, and my latest has I'll show you. So it turns out the egg and the Egyptian inside, and then I have another egg here. Yeah, and then you talked about fire, and I have fire here.
Just some archetypal process happening there, isn't there?
Yeah.
I mean, that was a part of the surprise to me. Is like, I didn't think I was. I mean, I felt a little bit alienated from society actually, but to do these drawings, it helps to connect with the archetypal level. We're all at some level. Eggs and fires and stuff.
Great confirmation.
So let's see if I can master this slide share here and get the next one.
I think you muted yourself. Yeah, you're muted.
Huh.
There you go.
How am I now? Okay.
Now you're good. So you need to be in the Zoom window and click on the share screen from within the Zoom window.
Okay, share screen. Hi. Okay.
And then select the PowerPoint that you want to show. That's it, you got it.
Except it's not the one I want to show.
Oh. We'll close that one out altogether.
Well, this is, I think, how about if this works just a minute here? How's that?
No, I think you're gonna have to close that one out.
Okay, close that out.
Yeah. And do share screen again. And find the one that you want. If it keeps bringing up that one, you need to shut that, actually close that.
So now?
Nope. You got to go back into your Zoom window, hit the share screen.
Hit the share screen, okay. Show,
And then select this PowerPoint. Do you see the PowerPoint on your desktop then that you want to show?
It's not one of these.
So you have to make sure that the PowerPoint you want to show is already open on your desktop.
See, I thought these are open. Let me start over here. I'm going to back out a minute here.
Yeah. Trying to show more than one PowerPoint
Okay.
ups the technical difficulties.
So how is this? Let's share. Let me see if this works here. Share screen.
No, so you have to be in your Zoom. There it is.
Okay.
Yay.
Well,
Yes, egg. It says egg.
we got it.
So now just do the slideshow and start slideshow.
So on this website, I run Jungian. I've been running this for about 10 years, and I have one page that says to dream of eggs, and of all the pages on the website, and there are 300 or 400 of them, this is the most popular. And I probably get someone every week writing in, I had this dream about fried eggs breaking open on top of a hot roof or something. You know, what does this mean? So it's apparently in Google, if you ask, what does it mean to dream of eggs? This is where you end up. So eggs are archetypal and they show up a lot. So I was trying to understand, after I made the series, why the egg? This is one of my favorite drawings. This is from the late 1800s. Nice big egg. Jung has a quote that says, God is in the egg, and it'll come up a little later. So this looks like a godlike egg to me. This is an image by Leonore Finion. She's holding a red egg, which is nice. Now, this is about 3 weeks into the search of why an egg, and this is the image I come across. Next one, Mary Magdalene and the red egg. As the story goes, Mary Magdalene traveled to visit the Emperor Tiberius in Rome, and greeted him with, Christ has risen. Whereupon he pointed to the egg on the table and said, Christ is no more risen than that egg is red. And allegedly the egg in her hand turned blood red. I was floored when I read this. I mean, I had not heard this. This is some Eastern, is connected somewhat with dying eggs and red eggs, but I had not heard the story. And these icons, I mean, this is very popular in Eastern Orthodox systems. This is the red egg, Mary Magdalene, the red egg is very, very well known. And so somehow, it struck, I mean, this made me, I may not have been a Jungian before, but it sure made me one, because there was some underlying process here that was happening far beyond me. And in my view, I mean, this is the story of Mary Magdalene, and it's really about service to the self. It's the feminine in service to the self. So this is the image of her in service to the self. So I'm just, I was flabbergasted when I came across this depiction of the eggs. There's a text in Alchemy, the Atlanta Fugians. This is emblem 8. This is one of my favorite emblems. Take the fiery sword and strike the egg. Okay, so what's this about? Why is this happening? What's this, why is it such an important image in alchemy? And of course, the alchemical vessel is an egg. The retort is an egg-shaped vessel. Part of, we talked in the earlier thing, I talked about opening, cracking of what we need is a hatching of the heart, the cracking of the egg. Well, this is when you crack the egg, when you crack your previous belief system, the shell that you've been living in, something else emerges. And Scheherazade talked about the man emerging from the egg. And this was a sculptor. This guy, I haven't heard of him, but this was one of the images I came across. This is another famous French woodcut from the late 1800s. This is, breaking open the egg, seeing the archetypal beyond the rational. In the Red Book, if you look closely at the images, at least 10 of them have eggs in them. Jung loved eggs, and he put eggs in his messages. Here's one right here. This is Red Book. If you want to find more, there's on Jung currents, the site's devoted. There's a page devoted to eggs in the Red Book. This is one of my favorite images. This is this monster in the egg. this egg right here. This is the beginning. And then the next quote is, so here he's bowing down to the fire coming from the egg. And Jung says, set the egg before you, the God in his beginning, and behold it, and incubate it with the magical warmth of your gaze. And that's in the Red Book. So if you see here, he is setting the egg before him and honoring it and warming it up. So this is also one of the most brilliant images in the Red Book. Okay, that stops you. I'm gonna now here's the problem, Judy. I want to open up another one. Next one. Maybe if I don't leave the.
You want to open up another PowerPoint? You probably have to stop the share totally of that one.
That's where I got trouble before, though.
All right, we'll see if that works. See if you can get it this way.
Okay. You got it? Is it showing up?
Yeah, it's well, it's the last image that we just saw.
How about now?
No, I really think you're gonna have to
Okay, okay.
get out of the share, close that PowerPoint window.
Okay.
Now we see the cabin. Is that it? Is that the right one? Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right, so then just go to slideshow and start slideshow. Great, you did it.
So another favorite Jung quote is, solitude is for me a font of healing, which makes my life worth living. Talking is often torment for me, and I need many days of silence to recover from the futility of words. This is all, people really like this quote too. A lot of folks identify with this. So, okay. I came across this quote from an Inuit shaman, essentially. All songs come to man when he is alone in a great solitude. They come to him in a wake of tears that spring from the deep recesses of the heart. They come to him suddenly, accompanied by joy and laughter, which wells up within us. We know not of what we ponder upon life and look out upon the wonders of the world around us. So this is the cabin. Okay. I'll tell the story of that. So another quote from Jung: man is in the wilderness, it is a darkness that brings the dreams. Another one, one text says that the heart of Mercurius is at the North Pole and that he is like a fire. Now, Cornelia and I there's one road between us and the North Pole. That's one of the reasons. Fairbanks has many problems, but it's one of its better attributes is you're very close to the wilderness and to the north. And I feel like sometimes the archetypes just come screaming over the hills, particularly in the winter. But it's really, it's really magical here because in some ways we're very close to the north, and the things come out of the north. So Cornelia's going to let's go back Europe. We were training in Zurich, and I'm looking for a cabin somewhere in Alaska I could just sit and calm down in. I'm having severe arrhythmias. I'm having my heart's missing 10 to 15 beats a minute. It's very uncomfortable. If I can just find a cabin to sit in, I think, well, I'll be okay. But even with VRBO and things like, I couldn't find the right place. And I decided, well, we have some property there. I should just build a cabin on our property. So that's where so I called a friend with a bulldozer. I need to go here first. No. So yeah, so at this time, this is about 6 years after the heart attack, I was still greatly affected by it. I mean, you can see this is, this is the heart. There's some kind of, trauma happening at the heart. And I always, part of the thing with post-traumatic stress disorder is, even it's totally irrational, you think you're going to die the next day. You just don't think you're going to survive. So even 5 years later, 7 years later, this is still haunting me. Okay, and as you can see some stones down here. And one of the images from the book, part of having a heart attack, it really feels like you've been struck by lightning. So this is an image of being struck by lightning. And again, saw this before, this is the falling man with a heart going through, with the lightning going through the heart. And this is And this is my favorite PTSD quote. This is the captain. He's got 2 peg legs, hooks for arms, and 2 eye patches. And he says, "We should make it past the rocks by nightfall, provided our luck holds." Yeah, this is how it feels sometimes. Okay. So this is the cabin that was built. It's about 12. This is 10 by 12, and there's a cement mixer out there. There's a pond. We had a pond before the cabin. Okay, and I'm going to show you some images of the cabin. This is closer up. The cabin is built on what's called fractured schist. I just think it's hilarious. This is the kind of rock that's under the ground when you dig it, and I've started to put side it with the fractured schist. And there's also a rooftop garden up here. Okay, and this was the queen of the cabin. This is our dog, our chow Jenna. She'd like to sit on the stones in front of the cabin. This is a cabin coming in, from above. I've gotten, I don't know how many truckloads of stones, but these stones come from a place about 3 hours from here. And this is some of the first stonework I started doing, is this wall. This is, this is the inside of the cabin. Now, I said I didn't have really cabin building experience, but I had some crazy idea that I should line the wall with stones. So this is called dry stack stonework, where you don't put mortar in, you just stack the stones. And part of the thrill, or is it feels good when you have a stone that fits. When it fits just right, like Goldilocks. So some of these stones just really fit. These are two huge granite stones that's a seat. They took a day to fit in there, but when you get the right fit, it feels really good. This is more of the cabin. I've got a potbelly wood stove in there. Rather than have a regular windows in the back of the glass walls, it's not a cabin that you spend the whole winter in, so it's all right to have the light. This is one of the walls. It's called the east wall of the cabin. So you can see it starts with these dry flat stones. And I found near us was this sort of pit of broken stones. And so my task was to fit all these, these stones are all fitted together. They're not cut. It's like a puzzle. It's like a huge jigsaw puzzle where you have to fit, find out what fits. And sometimes you feel lucky. This is a little further up. A lot of people are fascinated by these. Are red stones that are cut in half, and they look like geodes. You'll see some pictures of the red stones pretty soon. And there's a copper ceiling. This is from a garage sale in Fairbanks. Someone had a copper ceiling roof they didn't use, and I thought I'd use it someday. And 10 years later, it's in the cabin. So I'm sitting there. So that image that was way back here, the image of the Grim Reaper putting a hole in the heart. I felt terribly fractured, and it's kind of like the Humpty Dumpty image. Like Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty in his place again. So I'm trying to put the pieces back together, and that's literally what's happening with the stone walls. Is I'm trying to put the pieces that have been broken, that have been shattered by the trauma. I'm trying to put the pieces back together. And of course, I love eggs, so I made one thing was Cornelia and I went up to the hill from here and found some quartz, and these are some of the pieces from the quartz that slowly fitted together. And this is just one of the small details on it. And so there is a great deal of pleasure when you find this fitting that happens just right. Also, it struck me as I was doing this. We all know the story of the 3 little pigs. You have the house of straw, you have a house of sticks, and you have a house of stone. Well, it suddenly struck me as I was putting these stones inside the cabin that I was trying to build a place that couldn't be blown down. I did not want to be blown down again. So I really wanted to create something very strong and solid. So this is part of what this. I hadn't planned that summer to work inside of the cabin and put stones inside the cabin, but for whatever reasons, that's the task that was called for. This is a picture more of this is a good view of the inside of the cabin. Even has a stone floor that speaks together, stone windows, and so on. It's one of my favorite pictures. So it's very primeval. I really like sitting there. I think that's it. Okay. Now we go to the hard part. Let's see if I can get the next one. 2, 3. Is this working? See, does it say stones? No. How about now? Oh, it says it's closed.
No, no, no,
How about now?
no, now you're not. I think you have to start, because now we're not seeing PowerPoint at all. So you have to be in your Zoom window, and there we go.
It's a mysterious.
Says stones.
That would be. That's it.
Okay.
We'll get there. So Jung says, many people cannot refrain from picking up stones of a slightly unusual color or shape and keeping them without knowing why that they do. It's as if the stone held a mystery in it that fascinates them. Lots and lots of people collect stones. I suspect some among you are stone collectors. Yeah. So when Jung was building Bollingen, he said, this is one of my favorite quotes too. He said, words and paper did not seem real enough for me to put my fantasies on solid footing. Something more was needed. I had to achieve a kind of representation in stone of my innermost thoughts and of the knowledge I had acquired. Put another way, I had to make a confession of faith in stone. And that's the line that I really like. I had to make a confession of faith in stone. That was the beginning of the tower, the house I built for myself in Bollingen. So he has luck. He had a quarry across the lake and he got his stones from. Another quote from Jung. Whoops, I guess I've gone out of the slide share. Wait a minute here. The stone symbolized something permanent that could never be lost or dissolved, something eternal that some have compared to the mystical experience of God, the one's own soul. It symbolizes what is perhaps the simplest and deepest experience, the experience of something eternal that man can have in those moments when he feels immortal or unalterable. So, as I struggled with the symbolism of the eggs, I've also struggled with the symbolism of stone. Why am I compelled to work with stone? And Jung was too. And what is it about stones? And I think this probably, calls for it more than anything else. The stone dolmens at the beginning of the show. There's something about stone that they're permanent. They're immortal. And so there's something, for some reason, they mark the gravesite. So I collect stones. So this is my truck. Trips I did with stones, and so this is another. These are more stones, big stones. One of the things when you collect stones is you need to sort them. I've learned this the hard way. Many masons I work with don't even sort the stones, but it sure helps in the beginning if you have flat stones, round stones, red stones, whatever. Much more. You can kind of find what you're looking for easier. You can even get to the point where you can sort them in buckets. And these are all kind of flat. These are flat red stones, flat white stones, gray stones, and so on. This is a particularly beautiful stone. I've run out. It's late August. I've made 5 trips to get stones. I'm kind of run out of stones. I'm tired. I really don't want to go on a trip to get more stones. And I'm driving by the transfer station in Fairbanks. This is where they transfer. It's really a dump station where you transfer your old bicycles, or trampoline rings, or whatever. And a voice in my head says, "Pull in here, Steve. Pull in a transfer station." Now I haven't pulled in for months, but I pull in, and as I pull in, a guy is unloading stones. I couldn't believe it actually, and so I just backed my truck up to his trailer and unloaded his stones from his trailer into my truck. And it turned out that he was demolishing a waterfall that a woman who drove a pilot car all over Alaska had collected all these stones, and this was her stone collection. And he was throwing it away, and I just happened to be there exactly at the right time to pick the stones up. So this is a stone. This is an Aboriginal stone. This is a chiringa from Australian Aborigines. They're sacred objects to them. For some reason, stones are very sacred, and I just love the kangaroo tracks here. And this is someone who possessed a lot. Okay, 1800s. Sometimes you find stones in the road. I need to stop a rock for my garden. It's very tempting. One of the problems with stones is My truck's not big enough for this stone. I just need a bigger truck. That would be very tough to manage. This is a stone of fate. This house is very lucky, but stones get pretty big. You don't want to, but this got pretty demolished. Okay, and stones are also, this next one is about stones very useful. When the stone's wet, it's raining. It's dry, it's not raining, and so on. My favorite one is we had one the other day where the stone is jumping up and down, it's an earthquake. So, okay. Next one, go again. How are we doing on? Okay.
No, we're seeing the same picture. That's interesting. Every time, first we see the old one, then then we get the new one.
Yeah, I think that may be that, but if I can get that way, at least I'm getting,
We're seeing that's from the old, we're seeing the stone hanging down with John's weather forecasting.
yeah. Now you should be seeing, whoops, here.
No.
Nope.
You gotta get out of that somehow.
That's right. One more time here this way. Let's pause, new share.
Oh. Hidden hands.
Yeah, that's what it should be. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Oops, now I did this myself.
Ah,
It's a slideshow.
now it's back.
Okay. So there's a very famous quote from Bill Moyers and Joseph Campbell. And Moyers asked Joseph Campbell, he said, "Do you ever have the sense of being helped by hidden hands?" And Campbell says, "All the time. It's miraculous. I even have a superstition that has grown in me as a result of an invisible hand that comes all the time. That if you follow your bliss, this is where the follow your bliss comes, and you put yourself in kind of a track that's been there all the while, waiting for you, and so on." So there's this idea that hidden hands, if it's like suddenly finding the stone. It's about synchronicity. So suddenly they're hidden hands. So when I started building the stones, I wanted to pay tribute to what I call the hidden hand of God. Okay, there's a hidden hand behind things, and this is what came up. Now later this is more like a bear paw, so now it's sort of the hidden bear paw of God, but it's just as good. And if you look in this truck, see this. Here's one of the stones right here. So these are just this is sort of the miraculous thing. It just happened that I went to a place that had stones that looked like fingers. This is the only place I've gone to that had stone like fingers. So it's been this is our winter stone. And this was honored by Moose. That said, yeah, he gave it a blessing. Now it's not totally solid here. So here's the bear. It's right here was the bear paw, and I'll show you what happens next. So this whole thing started. You can see these rocks right here. This is bedrock. This is fractured schist. And so the guy who was running a bulldozer ran into these stones, and he was swearing, and he was trying to pick up the stones and get rid of them. And that's when I told him to stop, because this is a beautiful set of stones. I mean, this defines the stone sanctuary. Actually, this run of this is about 4 feet below the surface. So this is bedrock. And then this became this is like the rays of something from the bear paw. Okay. And I've increased it as it develops. This has been a lot more stonework, and now it's like, it's got this triangle stone here. This is a mammoth bone, actually. It's got these flat. For stonemasons, flat stones are really special. They're worth a lot. Okay, how are we doing on time? Is this a time for a break?
You mean to take questions?
I can take questions, yeah, or take a break. Or I don't know what you do.
We don't usually do a break in the Zoom ones.
Okay, I don't need one.
Yeah. Where would people go? When we're in person, we have food for our break. So
that's true. Okay, so
if you want to stop share, then we can take questions.
Sure. Yeah.
And let me pull up the list. Okay, Armenia.
Okay, thank you. First, I want to say that your east wall is breathtaking. And especially because about a year ago, I watched a Japanese documentary on a dying art in Japan, which is the stack wall master that builds stack walls.
Uh-huh.
And it was a documentary because Texas millionaire had built a museum for his samurai collection, and he wanted a stack wall as at the front of it, a partial stack wall. So the man from Japan went to Texas and stayed for a few months to build it. And when they explained how they build it and why, it's so difficult to master, when I saw your east wall, I was astonished. It was just, I guess I especially appreciate it because after the documentary, I know what goes into it, So I just want to congratulate you on that. But the other thing, I do have a question, and my question concerns this is a presentation on stone, but we've talked a lot about the egg. So what would a stone egg represent? And can you say a little more about the relationship between stone and egg that is so close to you?
So you'll see pictures of this. Actually, the goal, the focus point of the whole stone sanctuary, which I still have not yet completed for some reason that baffles me, is a red stone, is a meditative stone red egg. It's a chamber with red stone.
Mm-hmm.
It's a red egg. So it really is about, to me, it's the heart of things is that red stone, or the red stone is the red stone egg. And also, each part to me has been, some unconscious part that's being made more conscious or being developed. And the walls, I was fascinated, not curious, well, why am I building these walls? Because you'll see driftwood. One of the things starts with driftwood. It's a driftwood wall, and then it has stones in it. That's the east wall you're talking about. But part of my situation is my heart walls have been damaged. It only works a third. I have a third that's scarred, it doesn't work, a third that works sort of, and a third that works. So I'm trying to build up strength in my heart walls, and there'll be an image at the end of an overview. A friend had a drone and took a picture, and you can see how it sort of, things are in the shape of a heart, and there are all these walls that are being, so there's some kind of parallel physical process and psychological and bodily imagery that's happening with this.
So I'm sorry. So would you say that out of those walls that you're building is emerging the egg that is a different, it's a more spiritual aspect, and it's connected in some way to the earthiness of the wall, the stone? I guess I'm trying to understand, how they came together in your presentation, because you gave us a lot of images of eggs that were not of stone. So I guess I'm more curious.
Oh yeah, so I looked at all those images, and it's out of those images, the red egg that said, I've got to make this in 3D.
Oh, okay.
That's what I've got to build it. In the old days, in the days of Asclepius, they had dreaming chambers where you would grow into and have dreams, and you would be healed by the dreams. I can't build a whole dome. I can't build something that big, but I could build something that you can meditate in. So yeah, so I think this focal point is the heart, is the egg.
So it's your own Asclepian temple.
Yes, and I take clients down here too, and it helps them too.
Thank you.
Next, we have Joanne Lombardi. I've sent you on mute requests, but you haven't unmuted yourself. I'll go on to the next person. We can come back to you. If you raise your hand by mistake, you just use the same raise hand function to lower your hand. So I'm sending an unmute now to Janet. There you go. Go ahead, Janet Hartman-Jones.
Hello, I have two things I'd like to ask. One is, have you found that the PTSD and the trauma is healed? I think it's underlying your talk, and I'm assuming that there's healing from it. And then the other issue is this work a symbolism of your life journey that once the chamber and the stonework is finished, could that mean that your life is wrapping up? I wonder if that's why you hadn't finished.
Yeah, it's certainly wrapping up. And I have, the last thing will be about that. Yeah. And in terms of PTSD, I don't think, I think it's reduced. I don't think the PTSD is ever, it's always in the background. You know, part of my feeling is that one reason that I can do this work, or this work does itself through me, is that since that near-death experience, part of me is still on the other side. I mean, I never really came back. So there's the images and the stonework comes from that archetypal realm that is, there's this portal between the two, because of that, that death experience. So, and the problem is I still have heart problems. So the trauma is never, it's not like it's not like I'm cured. The people talk about the difference between being healed and being cured.
Right.
And I'm not, the physical damage is there, but the healing comes from the work. And it was to such an extent that, I had severe arrhythmias. I had my ejection fraction, which is how well the heart pumps, was down at, they said you need a pacemaker. Your heart's not hold, and I said, well, give me one more summer. And because of the work I did with the stones, it strengthened my heart enough, so I don't have a pacemaker. I mean, it was sort of in its own way, if nothing else. I mean, it's kind of crazy to work with stones 6 hours a day or 8 or whatever. Right. I mean, you're doing other things, but it saved my life because I'm working with the stones, because I'm getting that physical exercise and I'm outside and magical stuff happens. It gives me a sense of meaning that I wouldn't have otherwise and would have survived without.
Thanks.
I might mention that Janet is in the medical field, so it was the kind of question I might expect from Janet. Now it's Erin Braswell.
Hello, I was wondering if the stones had anything to do with the idea of like the philosopher's stone in alchemy, and if you could comment on that at all, or yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I have a whole talk on the philosopher's stone of alchemy too. You don't know my disappointment when I learned that the philosopher's stone wasn't a real stone. If I could just find the philosopher's stone, like Harry Potter and the philosopher's stone.
Right.
It's on the cover. It's red and it's about this size. Philosopher's stone, but the philosopher's stone is not a stone. It's something else, and it's really about stones are present everywhere. That living force, that philosopher's stone, the thing that is living is everywhere. It's everywhere in the world. There's a wonderful alchemical plate where these square cubes or philosopher's stones are floating in the air. So this is what, this is the stones are not the philosopher's stones, but they certainly generate philosophy. But they're about their commonality has to do with the stone is everywhere. That life force is everywhere. And it's about, stones also are about the prima materia. They're working out, they're the basic primal materia that are the building blocks of things. So you're working in an alchemical way, you're working at a real primal area. Okay.
Okay, we have Liz Wouters or Wouters.
Yeah, hello. Stephen, I was wondering, what is your relationship to the Egyptian symbolism? You did have a reference to Egypt, the symbolism earlier. The reason I ask this, well, I am curious, what's the Egyptian symbolism around egg and stone? When you showed us the picture of the East Wall, the beautiful stone wall, I just had a flash. Didn't know where it came from, but it's like, oh my God, that's part of an Egyptian temple. And I have been to the pyramids. So I don't know if that piques your curiosity about something about the Egyptian connection to your journey and your stone. The pyramids are these tightly fitted stone structures. Anyway, that's just an offering. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think there is a strong relationship, and I'm fascinated by Egyptian mythology. I have sandplace stuff, but Egyptian stuff is just they're part of the mystery. They're more mysterious. So yeah. And there's a scarab. One of the images is there's a red sun often over the scarab beetle, like a red egg actually. It's a red symbol. But ready? There are a couple more pictures to go. So
Yeah, that's we have no more questions right now. So
well, here we go through this hard process again. Share, screen share.
while you're doing that, I will mention that we had a lecture on Egyptian mythology back in I think it was October, and the recording, if you go on our website under past programs, the recording is there, and it was done by a photographer, so it's full of photography of Egyptian images.
Okay. So we're in Tracks Across the Sky. Did that work?
Yes, it did.
Better. Okay. So part of the way this worked for me is I'd go to the roof of the cabin and sort of sit and look and see what came next, And so I was camping with friends and deep in the Alaska wilderness. It'd been about 10 days in. I lost track of what we got confused whether it was Monday or Tuesday and so on. So we lost our sense of time. And we're in this deep place. It was in the wilderness and sitting around the campfire. Wonderful experience. And my literate friend started reciting Kubla Khan, from the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. He said, and this is what he said: "And that inverted bowl we call the sky, where under crawling coop we live and die, lift not thy hands to it for it as impotently rolls, it rolls impotently on as thou or I." So this is kind of saying this is 10th century, but there is no God, is what he says. Don't ask for help from up there. It helps. So that night, I dream I am lying on a bed of stones next to a river. Above me is the dome of the sky, covered with deep white clouds. There are bear tracks deeply embedded in the clouds going up the left side. At the peak of the sky, the bear tracks turn into lynx tracks and descend down. And I feel a great sense of peace. It was just wonderful. I mean, this like you can see these tracks going woo, woo, woo up to the top of the sky, and then the lynx track coming down the other side. Now, partly it's it was like I was probably 30 years old, and I think it foretold a shift from the feminine to the masculine to the feminine. I mean, I start out as a bear and then come down as a lynx. So I'm sitting up there and I looked at the bear paw and I thought, I need to make a lynx paw opposite the side of the bear paw. So this was the next structure. So this is what a lynx paw looks like. And of course, the stone seemed to have been there, and it was created above a quartz moon. And this is early work, but these are the quartz stones Greenland I found, and that's the lynx paw. And this just another view of it. You get a view. That's a view from across the path. So here's the lynx paw over here. That's the moon. These are just more dry stacked walls on our birch forest. These are pretty short sections. I figured I would. I didn't know how many I was going to get through, so I put them in separate sections. But stop share. New share. 6. Okay, it should say sunken Enzo. Is this correct?
Yes. Okay. You've mastered it.
No, I wouldn't go that far. I still do it. So slideshow start. Okay, so in Zen, the Enzo is it's a circular form, is a circle that is hand drawn in 1 or 2 brush strokes. It's sort of when you do a lot of Zen work, and eventually you can just sit there and you do this perfect circle. So it's a very kind of meditative art in Zen, and I've always liked Enzos. And there's a quote from Jung. He said, "The saying of the alchemist is that God is a circle whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. The saying holds for God, for the anima mundi, and for the soul of man." So this is the idea there's a sort of a circle, this infinite circle. So I'm thinking, again, I'm on the roof thinking, I need to make this sort of sunken circle, giant sand play type thing. So these are from the transfer station. These are old trampoline rings. Kids jump on and people throw them away, and it's 14 feet across. And there a number of the structures in the stone sanctuary are based on this 14-foot circular trampoline ring. And this is just, the work has just begun. These are some of the stones that are there. Just so you get, this is the pond that's behind it. There's no driftwood wall here yet. So this is some of the size of the stones. These are big stones. And they are where I am digging. Of all the places where I'm digging, these are the stones that I get. And so you get this stone, if you try to, stones weigh about 180 pounds per cubic foot. So this stone is probably 200, 300 pounds. So you don't want to move this stone. You don't have to put it in your truck and carry it and move it somewhere else. But the stones were right there. The stone, so I decided, for whatever reasons, I decided to build this thing, and the stones that are needed are just in the right place. And so these are all bench stones from right here. They came out of right here. That's the center. I marked the center here. These are all stones, and the biggest issue with stonework for me is getting the fit. They're fitted. These are not cut. I try not to hurt any stones. So these stones are all, you have to get the stones connected in a way that matches the fitting. This is an early picture, but you see so it's a circular 14-foot circular thing, and this is sand here, and we'll talk about this structure a little later. So this is the sunken enzo. You can see a driftwood wall here, which I'm going to talk about shortly. This is sort of an artistic rendering. So you put things. The idea is this is like sand play. You have the sand, the sunken enzo, and you put things in there. I had a client who had grief and loss, was dealing with the death of a friend, and these are the figures she brought down to the sunken enzo and played, and that was very helpful for her to be able to put these in perspective. And then now this next thing is probably the most remarkable event that happened to me as a therapist. So I had a client with, it'll take a little while to tell the story, but I had a client with a multiple personality disorder that I'd worked with and had 12 distinct personalities. And we'd worked for about 3 or 4 years, and then she got better, and I hadn't seen her for a couple of years, and she called me and it hit her head and needed some more work. So we went down, it was August, the Stone Sanctuary hadn't been around very long, but I said, let's go down there. You might enjoy this. And so we went down, and she sees this sort of bright light coming as she's going. And she sits in the center of the enzo. I'll go back here. And she starts cycling through all her personalities. And she does an eye rub, and then another personality emerges. And each personality emerges and goes out and it looks around at where it is, and then the next one comes out and looks around. She does this, through all 12 of them. And then the small voice says, "Nobody knows I'm here." I'm totally startled. And the voice says, "Maybe they'd like to know me." I said, I think that would be a good idea. And she says, well, what should I call myself? And looks around and says, Rocky. I'll call myself Rocky. And I said, no, that'll probably scare them off. I think I'll call myself Sky. And I said, well, that's wonderful. The sky kind of connects everything together. And so she starts talking to the other personalities with this new, really young personality. And this was the missing piece. What I didn't say, before she started on this, before she sat there, she made this image in the sand. She didn't even read Jung, right? Totally naive. She made this circle, the magical mandala right there, and then does this thing and becomes more whole by processing the personalities. It was an amazing experience. And after that, her anxiety went in half. She was able to retire, leave town much more, just much more grounded. And it was a result to me, part of the whole experience with this is how important place is. It's not just about, talking and diagnosis and all this, but place can really bring things out. And so the Stone Sanctuary has a way of bringing, really brought this out. It was worth building it just for that experience. Okay. So are we seeing a nope? Stop share.
Seeing a landscape. We saw a landscape.
Oh, I might have been right there. Yeah, landscape. Yeah. Driftwood, like winter landscape.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I saw right now. Yeah, there it is.
So when I first built this, you know, the critical direction in Alaska is the south, because the south is where the sun is half the year, and when it's in winter, that's the only place it is. So the southern, everyone talks about southern exposure. So the south direction is very, very important here. And we have a huge river called the Tanana River, and there's driftwood that comes down it. And this is what the pond looked. You know, we built this pond to water the garden. This is long before the cabin was built. It had been there. But so, anyway, so you can see that this is driftwood I collected from the river. Okay. I just like this. It's like to me, you'll pay attention to this, but this is like a swimmer to me. And so you see that here are the legs and the swimmer going on. And we had one really warm year in Fairbanks. This grew pumpkins, and so I put the pumpkins on driftwood. It's really we've never been able to grow pumpkins the size in Fairbanks since. You'll see part of my task here at the beginning was to try to fit the little each place in the like here, right here. You see the stone fits just right into the driftwood, and that was my task, is to find stones that fitted just right. And this is an image of this is in September. The fog, things are it's been frozen, and things are moisture in the air. Okay. And this is this is probably late December. How it is. So this is the driftwood wall. I show this because the next one. Let me stop. See if I get it right this time. So after that comes
Southern wall.
yeah. Well,
Oh,
now it stopped. Okay, so much the walls are. Yeah. How about now?
says southern wall.
Let me get rid of the other one. Now that may be interfering with it. Don't see. Okay, you see that? Okay.
Yeah. That's the same show you just showed us, right?
See it? You see this? You see a wall now?
Yeah.
Okay, and you see this. So this is what used to be the driftwood, right? You seen? Yeah, you seen that, Judy?
Yes. Yes.
And so the matter here is of fitting the stones into the spaces. And these are these red stones that come from about 6 hours away from here. They're very special. They're from lava. I think they're all kind of river stones that were lava once, and they're very well rounded. And this is from another area. So the task here was to fit the stones in the wall. And you kind of get an image of how it is in winter. This is probably solstice time. Getting more stones from the wall. This is, if you saw that swimmer, these are the legs of the swimmer that was in the wall. And of course, as I like, these are like red eggs, since I do red stones, I like the red eggs. And, this is what I call I did this at the same time, however, here are the eggs over here, but that they were doing the Game of Thrones, had the Iron Throne. Well, this is a stone throne. It's instead of the Iron Throne, and it's amazing. It is amazingly comfortable. Here, it also looks like a turtle. If you see the head here, and this was an egg, but these would be the legs and the wing of the things of the turtle. So this is a place at the center of the wall to sit and look out at the rest of the stone sanctuary, and it's very, very peaceful here. And this is one of the things you learn to do with stonework is when you find a stone that's special, like this is a big flat stone. This is not cut. You save it. And this seemed to be the right place for it. In the same way with this stone here, this is granite, and it's pretty special. So you can see a cart in the background. That's those we used to move the stones around. This is more images of the wall. So this is another image of the driftwood. And this is from a little further back. This is my favorite picture, actually. This is part of the wall. My favorite work. So this is the heart. It's a stone that looks like a heart. And this is, it's red, it's these things. And so the heart is being protected and saved. And maybe it's in the chest cavity or whatever. And it really is, this is a wet, water brings out the soul of stones. So it's very nice when it's wet, and that makes the nice pictures. I think that's going to be the last of this. Okay.
Portal.
Yeah, but it's not showing up on, there it is. Let me get rid of this one, yeah. Okay. So I'm sitting on the roof, and let me set the slideshow. And I see these two birch trees. This is directly looking south, and I say, yeah, that needs to be the entrance to the stone sanctuary. No, I hadn't, I mean, it was just a wall and there was nothing clear, but the tree said, this is where the entrance is. So I started putting the stones at the entrance. The day I did it, the day after I did it, I'm standing there and this moose walks right through the portal and blessed the pond for me. So we have one of the favorite things we have here is seeing the moose come through. This is as you come in to the sanctuary from the other side. This is the other side of it. You know, if you're coming from the south, this is what you see. And these are the red stones. These are all stones from a river nearby. These are Shaw Creek stones. You can become very familiar with where to get stones in this place. So this is just a close-up of the stonework. And I really like these are all sort of baseball-sized red stones. And you can kind of see that they're from lava that have been smoothed by the river time. One of the things that happens is I redo work sometimes, and I found this perfectly round red stone, and it just had to be at the center of things. So yeah, that's just a close-up of it. These are particularly good. These are green stones that have a special. They all come from a particular area. Special green stones. You saw that before. That's the end. Yeah. So this is the wall that's right here. This is come down here, and this is the wall here. These are the birch trees. This is right above the. If you're coming. So this would be right up in this area. There's a second entrance from above. You can't just go into the entrance. You've got to have at least two ways in. So this is the entrance here. Again, the red stones. Okay. Okay, and this is, you get a picture more of this. You can see behind here. Here's the Lynx wall. Here's the quartz moon. There's the pond here. There's another wall here. I'm not even going to show. And again, the trick is how to find the stones that fit where they need to go. This is the entrance. These are birch trees again. This is one of my favorite pictures too. And I think one of Cornelia's favorite parts of the sanctuary. But this is, I wanted to make an egg, and it turned a little more into a beehive. But I'm not complaining about it. So again, this is dry stone stacked. The stones are not held with mortar. Right at the bottom, I think there's some mortar holding them in. But once you get up to this point, they're all. I mean, you could pull these stones out if you wanted to. And interestingly, in the center of the eggs of the stone you put in fill, and the fill the stone workers call in between the external stones. It's called heartstone. Of all things, it's heartstone that's within the structure. So this is also filled with buckets of stone. And it is amazing to me how many buckets of stones these things take. And this was many trip. You've got to remember those buckets way earlier that had flat stones in. That's what I was trying to get. These kind of flat stones you have to search for them and find them, and they're very special when you do it. You have to collect buckets of them though. This is just another image in the fall. We have a wonderful, there's a maple that grows here in Fairbanks. And I didn't know when I planted it that this would be there, but it seems to do very well with it. And this is, this year, these came up. For those of you who are gardeners, these are bleeding hearts. This is a perennial in Fairbanks. Dianthus bleeding heart. I was just so, to see bleeding hearts come up at the entrance of the stone sanctuary this spring, was just, this last spring was just made my day. I saw Barbara Ney had a question. Let's stop here. We can take some questions.
I don't see any raised hands.
There was one. We'll take any of it at this point here.
No raised hands at this moment.
Okay. Then I'll go on here.
No. There's somebody. Yes. Okay. Barbara Rondine. Go ahead, Barbara.
Well, hi there. I live up here in Fairbanks with not too far from Steve, and I've got to tell him that my bleeding hearts have never blossomed here, and so that is very significant that your bleeding heart is done so beautifully. And I just invite anybody that wants to come up for the summer conferences that we have up here, the Jungian conferences, and you'll actually participate in that stone sanctuary. It's just marvelous to see all of this.
If I can say, Barb may not have dianthus, but she raised apple trees, which are really hard to grow in Fairbanks until the rabbits got them. But so it goes here. Okay, let's see if I can do a screen share here.
We have another raised hand. Lauren.
Hi, thank you. I was trying to show my video, but I'll just go ahead and ask the question. First of all, thank you, Steve, and everybody who put this meeting together. It's just fascinating, and I love the images that you're showing. And I wondered, you mentioned portals, and I did some traveling in Scotland, going to ancient stone circles and stone mounds that were like wombs that you could go into, and the group talked about them being portals as well as perhaps tombs, but portals to a different dimension. Did you find in your reading and work any correlation to that?
You know, I had not seen the stonework in Ireland or Scotland or anything. I've certainly, looked at a lot in imagery, and it didn't originally start that way for me. I wasn't trying to make portals, but it seems to me as the work has continued that that's part of what it's about. That there is kind of that these places, there is a portal to another dimension, and it's another way through. So I will actually, my last series, we'll talk about that. I have an image of that, but I think it's become more evident. I think that's part of what the process is.
Right, they look monumental, there's something really, I want to say vibrant, but that's not the word, potent about the structures. It's more than, it definitely is artwork, but there's some weight to it that it feels like there's another message behind it as well.
Yeah, we're talking about the stonework, or the stonework that I did, or the stonework in Ireland. I mean, the stone tombs.
Oh, she went away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can send her an unmute. Okay, Lauren, are you, there you go.
Yes, I'm back. No, I meant your work, your stone structures. It feels as though there's something else there besides a work of art or a structure, that there's some potency to them. And I know that you're talking about your experiences, and that's part of it, but the images themselves seem to convey something more.
Right, and if that happens, that's that's because my role is one of conveyance. I mean, it's one of service to the psyche. It's one of service to the stones. I mean, it's not something I didn't say, well, I think I'll create a stone sanctuary, or I think I'll make this barrel. I mean, it happens by itself. You know, it's a process of the unconscious, unfolding is the way I would describe it.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, let's see if I can do a screen share here.
Uh-oh, you muted yourself again. You're muted.
Okay.
Okay, now I hear you.
Is the image up?
No.
So, just a minute here.
Start in the Zoom window again, I guess.
Here we go. Now it should. Yeah, here we share screen. Okay. How about now?
Coming. Something's coming. Yes, there it is.
The stones work too. You just don't know what's going to come next.
Right.
So Jung says, I recall this period from 7 to 9, and I was fond of playing with fire. Now, I don't know too many 7 to 9-year-old boys that aren't fond of playing with fire, actually. In our garden, there was an old wall built of blocks of stone. There were interstices of which were made interesting caves. I used to tend a little fire in one of these caves with other children helping me. A fire that had to burn forever, and therefore had to be constantly maintained by united efforts when consisted in gathering the necessary wood. That's kind of a cool image. You know, you can see Jung with his buddies. You know, we got to keep this fire going. Kind of like JFK, you know, memorial. But there's something about fire also that is important. That is continual. And a quote from the Red Book. This is just a sense of the primordialness of fire. The noise of the days of the world falls silent, and the warming fire blazes in our hearts. An old secret fire burns between us, giving sparse light and ample warmth. The primordial fire that conquers every necessity shall burn again, since the world is wide and cold and the need is great. So I've had a fire at this, from the beginning. I didn't know why. I built a fire altar. This is, and it's an old barbecue pit that, or barbecue thing. And every day, for the most part, unless it's really warm, I build a fire. It's sort of the first, Jung talks about making fires, and he sort of tends to it and talks to it, and it helps to start the day with a fire, and we have plenty of wood. So this was very primitive. When I was first building with it, if I had rocks, I just put them in there. This is pretty primitive rock work, but this sort of show you how things start. And but it worked. It was a fire. It was an altar. It was a place to have a fire. Here you get a better sense of it. So here's the fire altar. Here's the bear paw. Here are the lights. Here the sort of ray. I call this the ray of the rays, the bear rays. That's one of the walls. This was actually the first wall I made. That was the first. This was the bedrock. And this is the first wall I made. But this bothered me. It wasn't quite as good as I wanted it to be. So I found more of my flat stones and turned it into this. So these are all lots and lots and lots and lots of flat stones. And has a fire. And this is it from above. This is like the Burning Man. And this is fire in the belly. So you're looking at this from above, and there's, these just happen to be legs, arms, head, belly, and so on. So it's really, again, I didn't know what this was going to be until it became what it was meant to be, I suppose. And I suddenly saw, I'm building it, and I'm suddenly realizing, well, these stones would make nice legs. And I looked for some arms and a head and so on. So this is one of the later projects I've done. That was this last summer. And this is the next, this is where this is that wall that had the red stones, the south wall. This is where the south wall meets the east wall. And originally I planned to put a big egg there. I thought it would be, the place for an egg, but it didn't want to be built there. An egg didn't want to be built there. So I built, I collected all these red stones that are very special. And this is it from above. This is lupin. I'm going lupin there, which is a perennial in Fairbanks. But this will give you a better picture of it. This is from across the pond. This is cow parsnip. It used to be a pond. The moose had a party in the pond, and the moose every year come and puncture the pond. So I have a long running battle with the moose to keep my pond with water in it, and I've lost the last round. So we get this instead, which is it's pretty nice. Okay. So is it being, share screen now, okay. Share screen.
Red egg meditation chamber.
Great, excellent. Okay, so this was sort of, to me, what the whole point of the stone sanctuary was. This is the heart of the stone sanctuary. And again, here's the trampoline ring. It's gonna be 14 feet. And the idea was to enter it from below. I mean, you can sort of, and the chamber is going to be here. So you enter from below, sit here, and that was like the first work. So you get a little better idea here. So here, you come in from the pond level, and then you enter here, and the egg is going to be there. This is the cabin and a cement mixer. So now the structure's starting to go up. There's also going to be a pond around it. This is going to be a water pond with cattails. And I had the silly idea that, the problem with Fairbanks, one of the many problems with Fairbanks is that you can't work with stones in the winter. I thought, well, if I build an enclosure, I can keep working with the stones. And I thought, well, I'll build this up and then I'll enclose it and I'll be able to work with stones through some of the next month or something. But your hands can't work at 30 degrees. When it's freezing outside, the stones the problem is stones are stone cold. So they are, they're frozen and it's just tough to do it. So this whole structure a lot of things did not work. I mean, what you see is a lot of completed things. There are a lot of things and partial projects and structures I had to take down. Not everything worked. But now you have a better sense. I had a friend do a better rebar egg. This again, here is the water that it's going to sit in. This is the prima materia. These are the black stones surrounding it. Just if you want to look back, this is where that's where the lynx paw is back here. This is I didn't have a picture of this. This is Mount Sisyphus. This is the east wall. That's not, I haven't shown much with. This is going up. This is probably last summer. So these are special. The problem is these stones a good stone is hard to find, as they say. And so it's a long way. You've got to search for these stones. So I'm a little short of red stones. It's not quite ready to be completed until I'm ready to drive 6 hours one way. Okay. And this you get a sense of this is the meditation chamber. So this is the cabin, this is the egg. Okay. And you'll see a view from when you sit in the egg. This is about what you see this time of year. So it's very pleasant in there, but it's very interesting. And I've had clients come and sit in the egg too, even though it's not complete, but it's really special. So there'll be one more series, and then that'll be it. Okay. us here just a minute. It should be, you're not seeing anything though, right? No.
No, no.
See, I knew I hadn't mastered it yet.
It doesn't want you to end.
No, right.
Open that.
Open that here. Screen share.
Share screen.
Screen share, okay, but the one I want to show is not coming up.
Mm.
So let me just try it again. It's on.
So you need to have that open first.
Yeah, maybe so. Did it make it this time?
Nope.
Well,
Gotta be in your Zoom. In your Zoom. There we go. There it is.
okay.
Got it.
Yeah. So, well, I missed the. You didn't see.
Sunken spiral labyrinth.
Okay, I think we've missed the overview, but so that's most of the work on the stone sanctuary. And the question is, you know, I'm always looking, well, what do I do next? And we had another open space beyond the pond, and I realized that it needed to be a spiral labyrinth, like a shark labyrinth. I built one once after the heart attack, but it wasn't satisfactory. So in my head, I decided this was my picture. Whoops.
So go to slideshow. Go to slideshow and start slideshow. Yeah, that's it.
So this is the first sketch. I said it needs to be this. It needs to be a spiral labyrinth. I built a shark's labyrinth of stone, and it said I wasn't very happy with it. And for some reason, I wanted to build a spiral labyrinth. You know, that's what seemed that needed to happen next. So there's some land next to this one of the ponds, and so we have this dug out, and it's going to be here. Okay, you can see some of the stone. So this would be a spiral labyrinth. So had some work done. You can kind of see it's about a foot deep here, and you can see it. So the paths are marked. But when I stood, you know, I stood in it. It didn't. I wanted it for whatever reasons, and I've come to understand maybe why. But a flat labyrinth was not enough. It had to sink into the ground. It had to go into the depths. You know, a spiral down. It's like a vortex. So I called my friend back again. He was the one who dug the original cave, and we dug it even deeper. So now it's about 4 feet down. You wouldn't know from the, actually this is 2 feet down, but the sides are raised. So actually, so now when you walk through here, let's see if this is next. Yeah, well, yeah. So you get the sense. So this is to date. I mean, it wasn't, that was the end of last summer. So now I've made a spiral labyrinth with snowshoe tracks. So in the winter here, we can, you know, you go out and walk the labyrinth and descend and ascend, and it's wonderful. It's, you know, winters here are tough, and this is a way to kind of get a spiritual experience in the middle of winter. There's lots of reasons why, you know, why a spiral labyrinth and why a sunken spiral labyrinth. But I think it's bringing us back to the beginning with the dolmens. So this is what's called a Toei ball. They found there are about a number of these. This is a particular one that's about, so it's 5,000 years old. It's just beautiful. Just imagine this 5,000 years ago. This has been so magical. I mean, the spiral labyrinth is one of the oldest images in the world. I mean, people just intuitively, instinctively, archetypally draw spiral labyrinths, and it has to do with the beginning. It has to do with the beginning and end of life. You know, that we all emerge, you know, from a circle and descend. So this is the Great Cairn in LaGrange, the new Grange. You've seen there's some new, you know, they've redone it and made it look fancy, but this is from 100 years ago. This is the dolmen. This is the old portal. A lot of the portals that you first saw at the opening of Judy's show, slide, show with music were actually covered with dirt. The dolmens sometimes were, they were part of a submerged thing. So here are the two strong stones of this, and right in front is this beautiful, elaborate stonework, a circular work. It's just, this is 100 years ago. It just fascinates me. So here I am somehow, and I had not seen these before I started working on Spiral Labyrinth. And just, some archetypal process that needs to be conveyed. So the final slide then would be this one, in honor of Tony and passing through the portal on the slide. So open for questions.
Don't see any raised hands. There's one. Kenton Hyatt. Kenton Hyatt.
Shall I put on the video? Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Whoops. Here, we're starting the video. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry. Hi, this was a lovely presentation. Thank you so much. We've joined the club and so appreciate these presentations. Neither of us is an analyst, but are very interested in depth psychology and have worked with people with creativity methodologies for many years. I'm a mythologist, and one of the things that is very striking about your work is that it calls forward for me the image of Hephaestus, the wounded god of fire and sacrifice, of volcanic fire. And yes?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with, that fits,
Yeah. So, and he's imperfect among the gods, that the gods are perfect, but Hephaestus is not. He's wounded from birth. And yet he's the most powerful maker among the Olympian gods, and he has a seat on the Olympian table. And all of these reverberations are very beautiful about how we circumambulate the psychic image through a sort of psychic labyrinth, if you like, one of which we have on our own property and built from stones we brought here from the ocean when we moved to the Sonoran Desert, which is about as far away from where you are as it's possible to get. So it's lovely to think about. I was thinking as you presented that the work that you're describing I'm also an art historian. It's a bit like an outsider work, that you're an outsider artist.
Yeah.
And a very Hephaestian one.
I even submitted some of my work to the Arts Outsider people 15
years ago.
And they rejected it. And I sent some letter to my sister who's saying, yeah, of course not. But I actually, the woman actually read it. Mistakenly read it. Who was in charge of the exhibit. And defended
That's very funny, because as far as I'm concerned, it would qualify beautifully, but you also describe the artistic process so well. And there's a lot of magic to it, which is why it's misunderstood. So there's a psychic thing about the archetype of the Hephaestian creator, I think, that's misunderstood, that you've brought together. And the beginning of your presentation was particularly powerful about the experience of this heart attack that's irreversible, just like the Hephaestian experience. So that even though you do this art, it doesn't go backward, you're going forward. And it's such a lovely, lovely experience to share. And thank you so much.
So did the image of, did you have an overview view of the labyrinth now?
Yes.
Yeah. I left this out, but it's a good place. So this is it. I had a friend, actually a policeman, who uses these drones for surveillance work, and said, "Can I take a drone with your thing?" I said, "Sure." So this is it from above. I've never seen it from above. It's cool.
It is.
And so here's the cabin, right here. There's a lounge chair in the cabin you can sit in. This is the beach. Yeah. So this is the sunken Enzo. This is the one, but you can see around it, there's another. There's an egg here too, right? This is the shape of an egg, and this is also the heart. So this is also the I didn't quite see this until the thing. God, I missed the whole. I missed the whole segment. Oh well. This is a Fibonacci spiral. Didn't even see that. Okay.
Yes.
And that's the cornucopia. So there's a Fibonacci spiral here. this is the wall with the red egg, that it's driftwood and the stonework, and this is where the red egg is going to be. So
your work is also reminiscent to us. We've been to Malta and visited the 5,000-year-old goddess temples there, and the beautiful flat stones and the egg shapes in all of the rooms
and the spirals.
Yes, and the spirals.
I had no idea. I was doing research on the spirals and hadn't even heard of those until 2 months ago. And then I saw the spirals.
Oh, it's amazing. Well, also in the Iliad, in the beginning of the Iliad, I think it's the Iliad that the first the first work in literature described of Hephaestus, the maker god, is a dancing floor for Ariadne, which means it's a labyrinth. It's a labyrinth.
Huh. Well, that's very interesting. I mean, yeah. So it's some kind of archetypal process that's beyond.
Yes. It has to do with magic, but also with specifically also with healing and with injury and with what happens in our physical, the vulnerability of our physical bodies, because Hephaestus is the only wounded Greek god, and he can't go backwards. He can't, for example, you can't rebuild your heart back to 100%, but the work provides your heart a different space to live in, which you've created out of stone. It's so beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, and of course, in Alaska, of course, they can only see it 6 months of the year. So it's it's there, but it's not there. It's interesting. Of course, that's the myth of Persephone too, I guess, going into the.
Indeed.
Well, I think that's a lovely place for us to end. I want to mention that your book, Heart Attack and Soul, is available on Amazon. Just recently became available. I don't think we mentioned that earlier, for $4.99.
Yes.
And I think it has most of these pictures. And
right, it was actually, I did it in sort of preparation, but so you kind of got me going to sort of relook and get it, get it more public. Yeah, supporting it there. I covered maybe a third of the images from the Heart book, and it's more. It doesn't have the stonework in it, of course. It's a story in quotes. It actually has held up for me over time. I'm surprised. It was a little bit like Jung's Red Book, not near the level of Jung's Red Book, but the same idea of you're kind of confronted by the unconscious and something that's produced by it beyond your ken. So.
Well, thank you so much. This has really been wonderful. And I think what I'm going to do, a little different than usual, instead of just saying goodbye, I am going to play the introductory slideshow as we sign off. I'll just let it run for at least 10 minutes. The music piece lasts about 10 minutes. So those of you who missed it, or if people still want to be thinking about Tony, and especially in the context of these amazing stone images, please feel welcome to stay. And hope that we'll all see you at our May lectures.
Thank you all.